Welcome everyone to episode 185 of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Pantellaresco. I write stuff and podcasts too. Today, my guest is the returning Sarah L. Johnston. And as many people know, Sarah's kind of like one of my favorite people on the planet. Just so uniquely her. I really dig her. And although this is a short conversation, it's a really fun one, and I encourage you guys to check it out. Before I begin the conversation, though, I'm going to actually advertise a friend of mine by the name of Mel V, who's going to be coming on the podcast. She was on the part of the Sweet and Sultry Summer, part 2, but she's doing her very first multimedia presentation, and the topic will be the multimedia exploration of a Black womanhood. It takes place September 7th at the Community-Wise Resource Center, in partnership with the Canadian Cultural Mosaic Foundation. I applaud Mel V for being brave enough to go out there and present something outside of her comfort zone. So Mel V, I'm rooting for you. I hope I find a way to be there, but everybody else should check it out too. It's September 7th, 7 p.m., the Community-Wise Resource Center here in Calgary.
Sometimes that's the best way.
Actually, it's the only kind. I found more than anything else in this life that don't judge us too much this time. Just taking it. But no, I have found just doing stuff is the most. You just learn, and you can't not help but learn something. And when you do that, you don't necessarily have the conventional way of looking at things, but that's not always a bad thing either. I look at the fact that my dad's health background. He pretty much learned everything himself. And so he doesn't have the conventional approach at all. But he sees things nobody else sees either, which is really refreshing, because it gives an alternative, which I think we need as many different ways of learning how to do things as possible.
Well, and taking the opportunities to learn too, right?
Mm-hmm.
If someone is offering to show you something, like never over their shoulder. I spilled a gin and tonic on my laptop a couple days ago and immediately powered it down and took it to my husband, who's an IT and computer hardware expert guy. And, he was like taking it apart, so I just why not? I hover over him and he's opening it up and blowing it out and everything. And, so I learned what the inside of my computer looks like, and I learned, what you can touch and what you can't.
It's interesting. I've seen, I think the most practical cleaning I've ever seen tool with a laptop or just an old school computer, toothbrush.
Yeah.
Because it goes into the keys, which is something that a lot of things can't do. So it's I saw it's wow, this is interesting. Not as interesting as I thought it would actually be, but it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, then I was asking questions like, why don't they put something under the keyboard so that if you do spill your cocktail on it, as I am prone to do, the water doesn't get into the circuitry? He's like, well, because that would be heat from escaping. Computers, they generate a lot of heat.
And they go bust.
And then I said, well, then they should put sponges in there to soak up your gin and tonic.
I have a very fun thing. Your husband was very amused that afternoon.
He just shook his head and he's like, well, then you wouldn't just have, liquid in your computer, it would be keeping it in your computer. But
I can just imagine this. There's just a little bit of this, and then you're there's this twinkle. I can't win. So there's no point. So how was being a writer at residence?
It was really good. It was really intense. I learned a lot about the reasons people write and the reasons people seek feedback, which is the most surprising part of it was that people welcomed the feedback and appreciated it, but more than anything, people just wanted to talk about their stories.
Yeah.
So I learned that even before I would get into my comments and my notes on their pages, I would just say, tell me about your story. And they would start talking, and I learned the right kind of questions to ask, tell me a little bit more about that, or how did that make you feel, or what happened after that. And they would tell me all these things that, and so many times I would just say, why aren't you writing about that? Oh, well, I didn't think it was that interesting. Like, are you serious? Like, that's what I was wondering what was happening, like, between the lines of what you wrote. So I was actually able to give better feedback based on that.
It's amazing what asking a few questions actually reveals about the person, right?
Yeah.
How they answer, what they don't say, and all right. Sometimes it's about what they see. Sometimes what they don't want to see too. All right, which is an interesting dialogue. I've learned that doing interviews.
Well, especially people writing memoir, they often skip over the uncomfortable parts, the parts that they're worried will upset their loved ones. And it's like, well, you know what? You're writing a memoir. You're going to upset somebody.
Oh, that kind of happened when I did the tea. That's kind of happened when I did the tea thing. Mm-hmm. I told my story, and I got a very public.
Well, exactly, but
yeah.
If you're gonna write your story, you have to
be honest.
Be brave enough to tell the truth.
Well, yeah, you look, you might be wrong. You might be wrong about some things, but the reality of the situation is you gotta be honest with what you feel. If you don't be honest with what you feel, it eats at you. Mm-hmm. And also, you're not comfortable with yourself.
Well, and your version is your version.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not writing journalism here. You're
No.
writing the truth as you see it, as you feel it, and that's what resonates with people, not just sort of the detached reporting of the facts, right?
No one wants that. Like, even in journalism.
You're still telling a story.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's still a narrative.
It's still a narrative, but look, if I wanted an impassioned, unbiased view of how things are, I just watch a security camera. Because honestly, that is as unbiased as you get. It's just the camera sees what it sees. What makes life interesting is people's connections with those moments, right? And doing the podcast, I think the biggest thing I've learned is I like real stories. And when I write my fiction now, I don't care. I mean, I can still come up with the zaniest ideas, but at the same token, it's not about those ideas. Because they're cool, but it's about that human element. Why do I care about this? What's going on that makes me invested? And what people are invested in is how you experience things, how you react to things, right? Because that tells you more about who people are than anything else.
Well, and telling it's kind of counterintuitive, but it actually, the more specific you are in the retelling of your experience, those specific details, those specific reactions and thoughts, those specific ways you connect to a situation, the more universal it feels. Mm-hmm. Like the more universally it will resonate with the reader.
Oh yeah, people can relate to, like, there are 7 billion of us. So I mean, what makes a story unique is the person telling it. But the situations, the feelings, the thoughts, the conflicts, we've all been there on some level.
But like, it's being specific about it, and not glossing it over. Like, nothing leaves a reader colder than vagueness, than generic descriptions of an experience or a summary. Like, you really need to get in there and be like, this is exactly how it made me feel.
Well, yeah.
Exactly what this looked like.
Well, could you imagine people actually talk like that? Like, you'd hate those people so much. You seriously would, because you'd be like, so what about this? It was nice. That's it. It was nice.
It was nice.
I hate that word. Nice. I hate nice.
Yeah, it's one of those nasty words.
Yeah.
Really just it's a word for nothing.
Yeah. Fine's another one.
Nice, fine, should.
Sometimes shit's a good word. Sometimes. Maybe you shouldn't have, did that line off the stripper. That probably was a bad idea. Right? That might have been a bad idea. Should's okay in some things, right? No, it's like, I should be good.
Should and shouldn't are good, like, post-mortem words.
Yes.
When you're debriefing after a situation gone horribly wrong. But going into an experience, it's just, you know what you're going to do.
Most of the time, sometimes yes, sometimes no.
I had a discussion with friends about this, about impulsivity, impulse control. And my theory is that people are never as impulsive as you think they are.
No.
They're never doing things as thoughtlessly as you think they are. It may
never.
look sudden, it may look impulsive, but it probably isn't. It's probably just something they would do. They just haven't ever had the opportunity before.
Well, it's just more about, it's also just being honest with you. I think as I've gotten older, right, I'm more deliberate in the shit I do now. That's what I find. I don't excuse it. I don't sugarcoat it. I'm like, yeah, I know this is it. Yep, I know I'm paying for it. I'm a grown-ass man.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
But, like, if I want to jump in a frozen lake, if I do that, it's not because I just impulsively decided to do that. It's because I'm the kind of person who's going to do that if I have the opportunity to do that. It might look impulsive, but really it's not.
No. I might ask, why would someone do that per se? But
because it's there.
That's a fair question.
I feel like a better question is, why wouldn't you do it?
And that's a good counter argument. Why wouldn't I do it? Fair enough, right? You know, like I said, my favorite physics test question was why, and the one person that got 100% answered it, why not? And it was like, that was 100% answer. So you know what? I can't argue with that. So, you doing any more crazy runs?
Yeah, so I finished the Calgary Marathon, 15K, and it was a good race. I ran my fastest 50K ever. I've got the Lost Soul 50K Ultra Trail Run in September. So that's the next thing.
So, who's the ringleader between you and Rob? Sometimes I'm not sure.
It really depends. I would say he's the one who says, oh, there's this horrible race that you should sign up for. It's completely wretched. You'll love it. And I do. But then, I don't know, we keep each other accountable. Like, every day we run, we text each other and be like, I ran this is how it was.
Because I sometimes wonder when I watch you two, it's like, you might find the crazy stuff to do, but somehow I feel like you're like, well, we're already here.
It just depends on what we're doing. Like, he's definitely the crazier runner. Like, he's running like 100 Ks and stuff like that. He's doing the death race in August. He's amazing and he really inspires me. I don't know if I'll ever do those kinds of distances.
Yeah, you will.
Stop! Don't say that.
You will. No. My feeling with you, I just had this discussion this morning with somebody. See, I'm the kind of guy that goes, if I'm going to go do something, I just go all in right away, see what happens, get my butt kicked, and I won't worry about the pace. I'll just go in.
You guys still good? You want to eat food?
Good.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yes. But some people go, okay, this seems a little much right now, but I'll take a step towards it.
Yeah.
Then I'll take another step towards it, and then I'll take another step towards it, and that's what I get the feeling you're at. Because something tells me 50Ks were not a thing you did even a few years back. Now you're doing 50Ks, right? So eventually you're going to get to the point where you're going to ask yourself that question. Because
Well, it's not. I've been doing 50Ks for a while, and it's starting to feel like not enough.
Yeah.
So the next step is a 50-miler.
Yeah, and then that's the thing. You're just one of those people that goes, okay, I'm not gonna go all in because I don't know what to expect, but I can build to that, and that's what you like, building that bridge there, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and I have people ask me, like, seriously, tell me why you do this. Like, I understand why people run, like good exercise and weight maintenance and health and all that stuff, but like running that far seems excessive. Why do you? And there's different answers. It's a complicated answer. I mean, one is just knowing what you can do when you're pushed to the limit. Pushing yourself, maybe not to that limit, but where you can see that limit approaching you. And also, endurance athletes tend to have this common set of personality traits where, I mean, you could say we have demons or something, but we all seem to have this need to push ourselves to that extreme to keep us grounded, to keep us functional in life.
So when I was going through this in Arizona, I actually had a conversation with death.
Yeah.
So I know what the extreme limit, like for me, what that was at that time. And the thing about that is, it's like there are these walls, and we're much like water in the sense that when we do things, right, whatever we do, they shape us. So when you're pushing your limits, you're kind of seeing how far that shape can actually go. And I think that's an interesting, what's the term there? It's an interesting approach, because you're like, okay, the cage is here. Can I stretch it just an inch? Because now I have more space to become something more, and it's not a bad thing.
Well, and what you learn from doing that is that you are always capable of more than you think you are.
Absolutely.
And knowing I can run that bar that long has given me confidence in like all areas of my life.
Oh yeah.
To look at what I might think is an impossible challenge and be like, well, it's going to be really tough. I'll have to work really hard, but I'm going to go for it.
There's a lot of people that suffer from the concept of trying to find self-love, whatever that is. I realized that honestly the best way to build yourself up is to do things, even failing.
Yeah.
Right?
You learn more from failing than you do from
exactly
flawlessly succeeding.
Yep.
Sure.
Well, even success does teach you some stuff, but failure definitely. No. Failure teaches you a lot more. But the thing is,
human beings are wired for negative reinforcement. Like,
yeah.
We don't like to think that, but we truly are. Like on the most primitive level.
Yeah, we're wired to respond to pain. That's actually what that is it. How we respond to pain, though, is what makes us who we are. I think that's where everybody's a little different.
Yeah.
But what I've learned is, like, those things teach you who you are, and they build you. It's when you don't do anything.
Our dads were all right. Suffering builds character.
Some suffering. Sometimes you go, do you want to go through that again? No. But I'm glad I did it once.
Mm-hmm.
So Miss Sarah, so you have a novel under your belt. So is book 2 your next book, or are you doing something else first?
Book 2 is my next book. I committed to that, so I'm working on it. It's an interesting process, because when you're writing, I had a draft, but it was written quite a long time ago, and a lot has changed. So it's almost like starting from scratch. But what I've learned is when you're writing a sequel, you can't pants your way through that. You actually have to do a lot more extensive outlining, so that, like, even just for continuity. Actually,
that's what I found when I did Storm Dancer from The Watcher. I had to go, okay, what came before, what didn't I do, right, and what should I do? And then when I did The Wandering God, it's like, okay, what's come before? It gets harder the more books you write, too.
It does, and it gives me, like, a lot of respect for people who write these long-running series and keep them interesting and keep them fresh, because I just can't. How can you be excited about the same characters in the same world for that long? I mean, that's a lot of the challenge I'm finding with writing the sequel is, like, hell, I've been working with these characters in this world for so long, and it's not fresh and new to me.
So I'll ask this question, and as she kicks me in the shin. Just kicks me in the shin. So this interview is over. This interview is over. Sorry, she's going to the hideous meeting part of this interview. But the question is, what I found for me what works, because I worked on these characters. Good. What I found was, what am I trying to say now about this character at this moment in their lives? I found that kept it somewhat fresh. You never get the new car smell back. You never ever get it back. But you can, however, it's like, okay, so with my next series, right? So I have this very cowardly character, right, who hates adventure, and I know what the journey where I'm going to take him on, and it's going to be honest. I've never written a character that kicks and screams so much as this guy, like, ever, and that's part of my amusing. It's like you're going to do it, but you want to kick and scream all the time. Why do you want to kick and scream all the time? And that's actually where I'm going with the next book. So why are you kicking and screaming? And I find that's interesting. And then as I find more, it's like, okay, this is deeper. I'm going to wonder when this series is over, when I do whatever my next book is. Will the characters I have there be richer? Or will I kind of feel like because I'll have this really, really developed world and series, and I'm kind of, my fear is, okay, now that I've done that, right, well, will the next characters be as interesting to me that I've developed this?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, and I've been thinking about, like, what am I trying to say with this story? And I think it's a continuation. The first book was a lot about, the big question was, who am I, right? And with the second book, it's a lot of, what am I going to be? What do I choose? Like, it's a lot more about...
What do you want to be?
Knowing your name, knowing where you came from is one thing, but you still, like, it's about the human power of self-determination, like deciding who you will be and who you are and what you're going to do. And it's not about divine intervention somehow saving us, it's about us saving ourselves.
Fair enough. Do you have a title?
Not really, not yet.
No.
I'm bad at titles. I rely on other people to title all my stories.
So, why in practice? Why did you call it in practice?
So my brother came up with that title, and it's just the Latin word for broken, and I really liked it because it tied into the biblical themes. So it'll probably be another Latin phrase or word. I just haven't 100% settled.
Yeah.
I can't call it In Practice 2. Apparently that's not the done thing.
In Practice 2, the sequel. We're really broken now. That's right. Actually, I have an idea. I'll see if this works when this is off the air. I have an idea for it because I think this is where you're going anyway. So, but beyond that, I think, Miss Sarah, we have an all-powerful, all-amazing interview here. What do you think?
It's good?
Yeah.
I feel good about it.
Okay, so let's talk about what's your book about again, and how can people find you if they choose to find you?
So my book is a Born Identity meets the Book of Revelation apocalyptic thriller. A human assassin is recruited by the Archangel Michael to destroy an oppressive global regime. And you can find it anywhere online. Books are sold, and some bricks and mortar stores. You can go to my website, sarahljohnson.com, and find out where you can find me on social media and other interviews and other books and stories. It's all there.
All right. Like I said, short but amazingly sweet. In fact, this is available now, courtesy of Coffin Hop Books. You should check them out wherever you can buy books electronically or brick and mortar. It's a really good book. Sarah's one of the most talented writers I know. Very, very passionate about the craft, and there are very few people that would be a better teacher, which is kind of my segue to what's coming up with her next. The Alexandra Writers Center Society is actually hosting Sarah, who's going to be teaching a course, Going Dark, October 16th, 2018. And there you'll learn how to write noir, horror, and deal with like what makes for dark literature. Sarah's really, really good at this. Her books definitely have a dark undertone. And like I said, very few people care as much as she does. And you're going to find, a great experience. So definitely October 16th, 2018. She's also going to be doing a 3-month novel writing course starting January. Same place, Alexandra Writers Center Society. Thanks, Sarah, for coming on my podcast. You are welcome anytime you want to. Yeah, well, that is this episode just about. I just kind of want to talk about, what's been going on with me in the last, few days. Friday morning, I kind of woke up and had this, desire to go, man, I'm saying a lot. That's okay, I'll keep it in. I had this desire, it's like, you know what? Why am I wasting time? The biggest takeaway I got from When Words Collide is I'm really happy with the success of the podcast. But what if I just put that intensity into my writing as well, just for a short while, see what I could accomplish? And I have had this book in me I've been wanting to write for about a year. And I started writing it on Saturday. And I've literally only been working on this thing for about 4 hours. And I've handwritten the whole thing. It's 40 pages handwritten. figure it out, that's about 30 pages, 300 words, 300 words on average a page. So, counting for dialogue, everything else is about 300. So that's about 12,000 words, 4 hours. I've never had a story like this before in my life, and I'm just kind of writing it out and seeing what's going on, which is a nice way of me saying that my intros and conclusions for the next few episodes are going to be very short, as I am going to be focusing on that quite a bit. So, thank you all very much for listening, and when I get to episode 189, I'll tell you what happened with the novel. Promise. Okay, that will do it for this episode of Just Joshing. If you like this podcast, you can support it a number of different ways. You can subscribe to it, Podomatic, iTunes, any player you have. If you like the episode, leave a comment. If you don't like the episode, don't tell anybody, okay? I have a YouTube channel, Joshua Penteloresco, with archived episodes from the past. There's about 98 of them up there, so you can definitely listen to quite a few different conversations. Beyond that, I have my books, The Watcher, Storm Dancer, Wandering God. You can buy them through Mirror World Publishing. And finally, the Canadian Association of Science Fiction and Fantasy has nominated me as a finalist for the Aurora Awards. For $10, you can actually donate and vote for who wins the Aurora Awards right now. So I'm encouraging you all to do this. It's a great membership thing, and you get to decide my fate and the fate of everybody else there. Truthfully, there's a lot of amazing people there. Hopefully, you find something you really like. I'm almost guaranteed you will. And yeah, thanks very much for supporting me one way or the other. And I hope you liked the show. Thank you for listening. I will be back very soon. Until then, stay inspired, stay out of trouble, or don't get caught. Whatever you subscribe to, I don't judge.
Josh.